the foreign policy of Bangladesh has been shaped by the changing in the leaderships and the governance policies. Every single time there was change in our leaderships and there was change in our people, policy makers. Because when Bangladesh was born on the very principle of socialism, Bengali nationalism, respecting people of all the faiths in the nation state, it was actually changed after the assassination of the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, back in 15 August 1975. And new leadership came to the forefront, and I think it's very much difficult for people of our generation to understand the profound implications of our foreign policy decision making after in the very aftermath of the killings of people like Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, because he is the very first person who actually initiated this very term to make Bangladesh a socialist country, where back in that time non-aligned movement was there, and Bangladesh got landslide support from Soviet Union or the USSR, and it was pretty much difficult to actually understand that there is a saying that the killers of Bangabandhu were sheltered by the then Nixon administration, and that's why CIA is sometimes cited for these things. So foreign policy of Bangladesh was, for the first time, was considered to be something which is like the friendship with all, malice to none, was something like which was given there in the constitution of Bangladesh initially when Bangladesh actually came to the world stage. But there were some very crucial problems when we actually started to talk about the changing of our public policies for the first time, because people actually didn't focus too much on development and having a very concerted foreign policy. It was so much focused or concentrated on like what I say, the maintenance of specific leadership's interest. So to be honest, I am a student of international relations, a graduate of international relations from a prestigious public university of Bangladesh. I do believe that it's not only about Bangladesh, it's about every single country in the world. From a realistic perspective, you must protect your national interest for the first time. So what's happening in our society, like Bangladesh, it's a third world nation where Bangladesh is, like what I say, going to be a developing state within 2021. We have amounts of changes. Whenever there is amounts of leadership change, we as a small state, which may be considered with the people of 180 million people, Bangladeshi people are so much frustrated sometimes when it comes to the question of what I say, the leader who is actually formulating our foreign policy. Is it the Prime Minister? Is it the Foreign Minister or a specific Foreign Relations Committee? It is not actually about the case like that. Whenever you are actually what I say, putting your head under guillotine, like when you are trying to understand what's going on inside our foreign ministry, inside our foreign policy decision making, it's so much refreshing for us sometimes, because we as a nation have utterly failed, honestly speaking, to formulate a very strong foreign policy. If you just look at the USA, Australia, Canada, and things like this one countries, they have very rigid, very strong foreign policy, because they are some kind of superpower, big powers, regional hegemons, and they hardly actually change their shifts. They shift into the other formats. But in terms of Bangladesh, the kinds of foreign policy which has actually experienced a lot of radical changes in our constitution, as well as the relationships with the specific nations all around us. In fact, you must have very good relations with your neighbors like India and other South Asian nations. But certainly, as a nation, we are a secular liberal democrat nation. For the people who are supported to be, there is actually a bloc which is considered to be something like secular liberal democrat political side. The another party may say that they are just people respecting the religious values of the majority people in the society. So you have other political parties, they have not got so much victories, but we had some ups and downs just because of the military takeovers back in 1988 to 1990. We had amounts of problems. I mean, there are some leaders who actually came out of cantonment and they ruled our country in an iron fist. And if you just look at the people, they also did some great things too, and Bangabandhu also played a very vital role in improving the state of our nation, and the subsequent leaderships also tried their best to protect the national interest too. But what happened in the very upside is that we have not been able to formulate a very strong leadership to formulate some kind of foreign policy which will be acceptable to every administrations or regimes. So that's the very fundamental problem of our foreign policy. But other thing is that we have some amazing youngsters like us who were born after 1971. I was born in 1990s. Okay, I'm now 24 years old. I'm a student of international relations. I'm very much cautious about the geopolitics, geoeconomics, and the other implications we have in our country. And most importantly, we must have warmer relations with donor states like Japan, USA, and China, Russia. They are either militarily or economically aiding us. As long as we are going to be a part of anything, we have to remember as a nation which is very much relying on the foreign aids. We must remember that this very thing, R&D sector and remittance from the Gulf countries as well as from other countries. We export a lot of our ready-made materials to the countries like China, to the countries like USA and other developed European countries. We must have warmer relationships with them. We must have warmer relations with India too. But if I say something to we must have relations with our country which actually had done so much injustice on us back in 1947 to after 1971. In these 24 years, they did so much on us. Just remember, whenever we try to say something like this one, remember we must be very much patriotic. We must be very much cautious. Just because we have so much polarization in our country, like whenever we have all the great talented voice, students, teachers, and wonderful policymakers in almost every political leaderships. Honestly speaking, we have patriotic people in every political leaderships. The fact is that we haven't been able to actually attract people like Mashrafi bin Mortaza in our political landscape. Most importantly, we haven't been able to attract wonderful policymakers who will be taking the decisions good for everyone. And most importantly, patriotic leadership will have to come forward. Youngsters, we young people who profoundly disagree with corruption, mismanagement, we become corrupted. We become, something like which we don't like, and we copy these things in our time. So we know corruption is very bad. We know bipartisanism is very bad. We know very well that not protecting national interest is socially, culturally, politically pernicious for our national health. But we do it just because we believe that it's giving us extra personal benefits to stay in power or to get some economic benefits. But remember, at the end of the day, youngsters are watching you people who are formulating the foreign policy. I am someone who is so much surprised that there was not a single student of international relations in the foreign ministry of Bangladesh, honestly speaking, as a foreign minister. Okay, so this is the very message I want to request to the policy making, especially who are in the BCS Bangladesh Civil Service Commission. They must remember that students of international relations and peace and conflict studies, most importantly, they study so much on foreign policy, foreign relations, diplomacy in their whole lifetime. And you can actually give them specific seats through which they will be able to formulate foreign policy and relations of our country in a better state. Just because we had very bitter experience when a foreign ministry in the very previous administration, a foreign minister actually expressed her ignorance, telling that I do not know what buffer state is. Buffer state is the state in between two contending states. Okay, we are now in between two contending states. We do not know exactly what kind of policy, foreign policy should we have to formulate. So we always have the confusions arising in our minds. We must have to dictate that foreign policy is something which is the soul and heart of our nation, and we must respectfully take the decisions that people who study foreign policy, international relations in the university, in their particular institutes, they must be given priority in the foreign ministry. That's what I want to send. Thank you so much.